David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another fountain pen review. Today I have something, in my opinion, which is very special. It's a pen that I have eyed for a very long time and was fortunate enough recently to add to my collection. And that pen is the Montblanc Alfred Hitchcock. What I'm going to do today is go over the parts and features of the Hitchcock, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for about the pen. I'll show some measurements, some size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. No giveaway today. This one's not leaving my collection. This review is going to be a little bit longer than normal, but I hope that you find it interesting because there's a lot of information to cover in regard to this pen. I am a self-admitted film geek, and Alfred Hitchcock is my favorite director. I could talk for an hour straight about just the film Psycho alone, but I'm not going to bore you with that during this review. Well, maybe a little bit of movie talk. I've stated several times in previous videos that this was my grail pen. These are not exceptionally difficult to acquire, but the price was something that I was just definitely not willing to pay. It wasn't even something I was entertaining. I didn't even have this on my radar, other than knowing that I would like to own one. But yeah, I had no expectation that this would ever happen. Then one day, I heard from a friend who had purchased several pens from an authorized Montblanc dealer outside of the United States. I'm choosing not to disclose the dealer for a few reasons, but they are indeed a legitimate Montblanc dealer and not just some dude selling pens that fell off the back of a truck. He was offering this pen at a significant discount to the standard price that I was all too familiar with. It was by far the most money I had ever spent on a pen, but even with that being the case, I thought to myself that if I were going to purchase this pen, I would never find a brand new one, still sealed in the box, for this price. So I had to jump on the chance. I wasn't planning on ever spending this much on a pen, but for my admitted grail pen, I was compelled to do so. Okay, the pen arrives in this large box. On the front, it actually says Alfred Hitchcock Limited Edition and has the famous profile of Alfred Hitchcock. I'm not sure how good that shows up there with the lights. That picture actually became synonymous with Hitchcock. You can see it replicated here on the inner box, this red silhouette. It was something that Hitchcock actually drew himself. Hitchcock was a commercial artist, and he got his start in film during the silent film era. He would actually create the ornate dialogue text frames that you would see in silent films. He worked his way up to be an assistant director and then finally a director. And his first several films were silent films. And even though there are no sound other than the music that would be played live in the theater, there are certainly Hitchcockian signatures which can be found in those early works. His film The Lodger is my favorite from that era. And then inside here we have the box which mimics the outer box, and on the front right here is a nameplate which says Montblanc Hitchcock and the limited edition number for this specific pen. When you open it up, you are presented with a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to set this pen aside just for a second, but inside here we have a little film canister which says famous quotes on it, as well as having the caricature. And inside there is a little round pamphlet which has pictures of Hitchcock and some quotes from the man. Like this one here that says, "The MacGuffin is the thing that spies are after, but the audience does not care." This actually isn't my favorite MacGuffin quote from Hitchcock. He told a story once about two men on a train. One man says, "What's that package up there in the baggage rack?" And the other answers, "Oh, that's a MacGuffin." The first one asks, "What's a MacGuffin?" "Well," the other man says, "it is an apparatus for trapping lions in the Scottish Highlands." The first man says, "But there are no lions in the Scottish Highlands." And the other answers, "Well then, that's no MacGuffin." So you see, in the end, that a MacGuffin is really actually nothing at all. Take the film Psycho, for example. The MacGuffin in that movie is the money that Marion Crane steals. You feel that it's the most important thing, but in the end, it really isn't anything. So, spoiler alert. But then again, that film is almost 60 years old, so you've had a chance to see it. Okay, back to the contents of this box. Underneath here, there is a very nice use and care guide with some interesting information about Hitchcock, as well as the process for making this pen as well. I did notice that the pen that's pictured here in the manual is slightly different than the pen that arrives, and I'll show you what that difference is in a little bit. When they made this pen, they broke the mold. Literally. I believe this is what they do for each of their pens in their Great Characters lineup, but in order to safeguard the strict limit on the number of this limited edition, Montblanc actually destroys the tools used to make these pens. They keep a few spare parts, but repairs on these pens are limited to only those which actually restore the pen to its full working order. Okay, that's enough of that. How about we actually take a closer look at the pen? This is the Montblanc Alfred Hitchcock. There is a lot going on with this pen. There is a great deal of symbolism built into the design elements, which are common to each of the pens of the Montblanc Great Characters line. The cap and barrel are made of what Montblanc describes as black lacquered precious resin, and then the trim, other than the clip, is sterling silver. Let's start by taking a look at the top of the cap. The finial has the iconic Montblanc snow cap logo, which some folks call the snow peak or snowflake. It's meant to symbolize the snow cap top of Montblanc in France. This emblem is a little bit of an off-white compared to the starker whites that I have on some other Montblanc pens in my collection. At the end of the cap, there is a wide sterling silver band. On the band, you have the maker's mark for the silver, and then you have the number of this limited edition model, which is 1386 out of 3,000. I believe they made 3,000 fountain pens as well as 3,000 rollerballs. Then we have the clip. I just love this thing. It is in the sinister shape of a knife, which is predominantly a reference to Psycho, although other Hitchcock films prominently feature knives as weapons as well. I mentioned earlier there was a difference between the pen that is pictured and what is here that you actually receive. On one side of the knife, it's actually engraved stainless steel, and they actually don't show that in the manual. I do like that the engraving is in a Courier font, which is very common for typewriters and especially found on movie scripts. And the detail in this handle is very cool as well. The cap angles gradually up and then back down just slightly, where we have a very unique cap band. And it's another reference to the movie Psycho. The cap ring features an artistic engraving rendering of the original label of the Psycho film reel. There's a lot of text on this band. It's broken up into 3 different sections. On the top part, it says Director, or DIR, Mr. Hitchcock. The middle section says Phoenix, Arizona, and Friday, December the 11th. And then the final section says 2:43 p.m. This band is unique because the first 2 sections are on the cap, and then the final part is actually on the barrel. So it kind of creates a nice transition between the cap and the barrel. Like the cap, the barrel angles up slightly and then back down just slightly. And then on the end of the cap, or end of the barrel rather, there is a cone. This sterling silver cone is a piston knob. This pen utilizes a piston filling system, and it is adorned with 53 hash marks. These pay tribute to the 53 films that Hitchcock directed in his lifetime. Of the 53, I've seen 40, with the missing 13 mainly being some of his lesser-known films around the late 1930s and early 1940s. Someday, I'd like to get around to seeing all of them, but some of them are a little hard to find. Okay, let's take a look at this cap and barrel material. As I mentioned previously, it is a lacquered resin. It is grooved and has a spiraling design. It provides a very interesting tactile experience and an even more interesting visual one. When you twist the pen, you can see how there is a great deal of life to the material. It's meant to represent a couple of aspects from the film Vertigo. The first being representative of the famous opening credit sequence designed by the incredible Saul Bass. The second reference being the mind-bending vertigo effect, which was a disorienting kind of opposite camera zoom. What I mean by that is that, well, the camera actually pulled back from a model, a miniature staircase, while at the same time zooming in, and so the result was a disorienting alteration of perspective. And in this age of computer graphics and digital manipulation, I kind of feel that the art of practical effects is a little bit lost in filmmaking today. The cap twists off, and underneath we have this very beautiful nib. Hitchcock was famous for making cameo appearances in virtually all of his films, and he makes a cameo appearance on this pen as well, on the rhodium-plated 18-karat gold nib. Beneath the profile sketch, it is actually stamped with 2011, which is the year this pen was produced, and it's flanked on both sides by lengths of film. Then underneath is the standard 4810, which represents the height in meters of the actual Montblanc. And here's a look at the plastic feed. The section is silver and begins with a slight flare, which I feel helps maintain a decent grip on this pen. Despite being made of metal, I don't find this section to be slick at all. And the rather thick girth works well for me. I tend to like rather thick sections. So I do find that the metal threads on the section are a little bit sharp, but I don't find them to be very uncomfortable. So I do find this pen very comfortable to overall use, especially even for longer writing sessions. It is a bit on the short side, however. If I could change anything about this pen, I would make the barrel maybe like a quarter or a half inch longer. The cap does not post, which is fine, because at 34 grams, you wouldn't want to really backweight this pen. It is a rather hefty pen. With everything together, it comes in at just about 78 grams. For comparison, that's about the same as 5 Lamy Safaris. Now, the price for this pen will vary greatly. I have seen them in the $3,500 range all the way up to the $5,500 range, and anything in between. So the ultimate question is whether it is worth the price, and is this pen grail worthy? Now, I mentioned that I was able to pick up this pen for a price significantly less than the full MSRP, and it is the most I'd ever spent on a pen. But the price was really the only reason that I purchased this pen. I can't ever see myself justifying a $3,000 or $5,000 pen. But for what I paid, I feel the price or the pen really provides a decent value, and I haven't regretted the purchase at all. This pen is impeccably crafted. I love the symbolism, and it ties directly into a very strong interest of mine. So yeah, I don't regret picking up this pen at all. Is it grail worthy? In my opinion, absolutely. Not all of the Montblanc special editions speak to me personally, but this model definitely does. And I'm really glad to have added this pen to my collection. If you are looking for a good read on the subject of Hitchcock, I would recommend 2 books. First up is a book by a man by the name of Stephen Rebello, and this book is called Alfred Hitchcock and the Making of Psycho. This is the most informative book I have ever read about a single film. The insights and stories and information are incredible. You can see here in different readings, I've actually highlighted a whole bunch of different sections, some of my favorite sections. One thing that I learned from this book was that when Psycho came out in 1960, when people went to the movies, you didn't necessarily always do it based on when the movie would start. You would kind of show up whenever you wanted to, and if it happened to be in the middle of the film, you'd watch that and then hang around afterwards and watch the first half and then take off. So people were coming and going all the time. Hitchcock changed all of that by telling people that you had to be in your seat when the movie started, and there was no late arrivals. They even had security guards that they would put outside, kind of as a PR stunt. This way, viewers could get the full effect of the twists and turns and surprises in this film. But yeah, this book is fantastic. The other book that I adore is called Hitchcock Truffaut. First of all, when I discovered the existence of this book in the early 1990s, it was out of print. The internet wasn't what it is today, so finding out-of-print books was very difficult at that point in time. I had to work through several book dealers specializing in out-of-print books before one of them located a copy. So this was a grail book for me. Now, a few years later, this book was actually put back into print, and they added an extra chapter, and so I had to pick up that version as well, which is what this one is, the newer version. And so now these are readily available and a treasure trove of information. Basically, what's going on here in this book is Hitchcock sat down with a man by the name of Francois Truffaut, who is an incredible filmmaker in his own right. The 400 Blows, Jules and Jim, Day for Night, just to name a few of the films he directed. He was in the forefront of the French New Wave cinema movement. Truffaut was actually also a journalist and a critic. And this book is essentially a transcript of a multi-day conversation between the two filmmakers. Hitchcock was a walking PR machine, but all of that facade is kind of stripped away in this book, and it really just documents a conversation between two creators at the height of their creative careers, talking about the craft of filmmaking. So there is so much to learn from those two men and this book. So that is the Montblanc Alfred Hitchcock. So now it is time for some measurements, size comparisons, and a writing sample. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Montblanc Alfred Hitchcock. In regard to a couple of Montblanc pens, here it is with a 149, and then here it is with a 146. I mentioned in the review, but you can see how this is more of an off-white on the snow peak or the snow cap, and the 149 has more of a stark white. And then finally, here it is with a Pilot Custom Urushi. Then in regard to some more colorful pens, here it is with a Classic Pens LB5. And then here it is with a Pelican M1000. And then finally, here it is with a Sailor King of Pen Pro Gear Sky to be specific. So here we go with the writing sample for the Montblanc Alfred Hitchcock. This is a medium 18 karat gold nib, and the ink I'm using today is Montblanc Alfred Hitchcock Red. This was the limited edition color that came out at the very same time as this pen. This is what the ink looks like. It's kind of meant to look like dried blood. And that I don't have a bottle of this. I'll be on the lookout for one. I'm not too keen on spending $100 on a bottle, which is what they go for nowadays on eBay. So I'll keep my eye out for a significantly lower price. I did have a couple of samples of it though, so for a limited time I'll be able to use the ink that actually came with this pen. You can see here that it's kind of a darkish, kind of more dusty red. Almost something similar to something like the Montegrappa Bordeaux, or even something like the Sailor Grenade. But, you know, whenever I have some of my more expensive pens, I have a tendency to kind of pair up an ink with that pen and stick to that particular ink. And I'm not quite sure if this is the best pairing for this pen. I had a different purple color in here that I didn't particularly care for, and that, they didn't care for the pairing, rather. And so I'm kind of on the search for that color that I think is going to be a perfect pairing. So maybe if you had a suggestion of what would be a perfect pairing for this pen going forward, then by all means, let me know in the comments. But let's see what the rest of the writing sample looks like. This 18 karat gold nib is fairly smooth and very pleasurable to write with. You do get a little bit of line variation out of here, and the ink flow is decent. In regard to reverse writing, it does lay down an extra fine line, but it is a little bit on the scratchy side. And in regard to some fast writing, I haven't experienced any issues with this feed not keeping up with any of the writing. So there you have the Montblanc Alfred Hitchcock. As I mentioned, that this is a pen that I've really enjoyed adding to my collection, and it's something that I really have enjoyed using. And so I am glad that it has is now in my possession. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.